And come back.
Oh.
Oh,
Your transitions are clean. I like them, Lee Dad. You
No,
yeah.
I like them too. I just think they're so funny because we
I know.
just all sit
Eh?
here and we're
I
just all
know.
like.
Yeah, I may put this in like the intro. Like, okay, are we ready to come back?
Hey.
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and as always, joined by my friends and co-hosts. We've got Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair, and we're here to talk about all things LCS and all the drama that's going around. You know, we're never short of drama. And something that I want to just jump right into because it's a topic that is sensitive. It's a topic that's been kind of around the community for so long. And if you've been around Reddit or Twitter, you know I'm talking about the whole Danny situation. And, you know, more stuff comes out. So basically, the big thing this time was that there was a tweet. Basically, someone in the community who has, I guess, sources in and around of EG put out a detailed timeline of everything that went on supposedly, and this was based on kind of a response to what Thorn had done as far as what EG was doing and what they may have known about Danny and still maybe forcing him to play and that sort of thing. But the whole thing revolves around the mental health issue and whether or not EG knew and was complicit and didn't get him help, or even maybe even pressured him to continue playing knowing that he was susceptible to having a breakdown. And so that's where it all goes. And so now this whole crazy Twitter drama comes on because now people are calling for the heads of all the EG leadership, saying that, you know, this is crazy. Why are you still in this league? Why is Riot not doing anything? Yada yada yada. And I know there's a lot of stuff that, you know, more details in there that we'll get to as we kind of discuss it. But I want to open with this topic because I do think that there are very strong opinions about it, and we've mentioned it here before. So I'll just leave it up right there as my intro. And Kevin, you can kind of go ahead and take the wheel and let me know your whole thoughts on the situation.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it short because there's a lot to talk about. I spearheaded this last week, so more details have come out. Someone else corroborated that wasn't Richard Lewis or Thorne, so like, you know, another source and someone who apparently doesn't even like Richard Lewis. So at that point, I'm kind of prone to believing it's at least mostly true. Maybe the interpretations are wrong, whatever. The one thing I will say is something that stuck out to me was that no one spoke up for EG. No one like outside of EG, someone who used to work for EG, like people who aren't in the industry anymore. No one came out and like even when Reggie was getting all this shit, of course he told people to say it, but like people did at least like think it was worth speaking up for him. No one thinks it's worth speaking up for EG right now. So the org, they're probably preparing legal argument, whatever. Sure, I understand. But no one's like saying it's not that bad. Just quiet, right?
Mm.
So I think it's very telling. I also think it's very telling that everyone came out the woodwork to reply to this article by Arsh, I believe his name is,
Mm-hmm.
someone who I don't think is as established as a media outlet or anything. I
Mm-hmm.
think he interned at Dignitas before, and he's written a few articles. Like I looked at his history on Medium. He seems fine, and he has sources, but it's just interesting that no one mentioned anything until this came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that you mentioned that actually, because I didn't realize that until you mentioned it, and I do think part of it comes from what you said. They're just staying silent so they don't incriminate themselves with anything, and I think they're going to clap back because, like we said last time, they're not teams, they're companies at this
Mm-hmm.
point, right? It's not just five guys trying to make a living. It's a company employing people because the company's going to make more money off of paying these people. Like that's where it is. So I think they're just gonna sit down, shut up, plead the fifth, and go from there.
Yeah, this whole situation is pretty whack, pretty crazy, and with the people speaking up thing, right? I mean, looking through the article. Someone contacted Danny and like just got fired for contacting them like after the LCS ended. So like, yeah, people don't want to speak up. People don't want to say anything. I mean, God, EG in the last year, I counted throughout this article, it's like almost 20 people got fired from the end of last year. Some of them were coaches like Rigby and Artemis or whatever. Some of them are unnamed staff. 14 or so of them were like because of some deal that dropped or something. Like it's crazy. Like this company is just shooting people out of their buildings like it's candy. So I don't really even really know where to go from this. Like it looks really bad. It looks really bad. And if people are calling for the heads of the CEO, which is Nicole something, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's some lady named GamerDoc and some other dude named Barton, I'm totally on board because they were in charge when all this happened, and then now the company's under fire, the team's under fire, and everybody is really privy to what they did, and it was, I mean, borderline workplace negligence and harassment. So yeah, I think you got to fire them. That's like the only way to really move. That's what happens in business.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue in and of itself, like hearing the just the facts laid out like that, of course, like that makes sense. Like that's a huge disservice to Danny, to any player really, and their mental health. And again, we talk about where was the player association and all of this. Like definitely new steps need to be put into place, new responsibilities where it's like they're actually looking out for the health and well-being of players, not just when it comes to financial stuff but also health stuff. I mean, that's the whole reason they're there. Like where are they, what are they doing even, like, and I think, when you look at it that way, for sure, yes, I am on Danny's side. Here's the couple of wrinkles I want to kind of throw in there, because part of it is too is like I hate Twitter. Like I hate Twitter
Oh
and
yeah.
how people argue on Twitter and how people like just want to like, I don't know, they just want to villainize or like just call out something so bad that it kind of just becomes like who can whine the loudest, and I hate it, right? And so sometimes the arguments get lost. So one of the big whines was that Azael actually retweeted that tweet with the article and was like, if this is true, it's very sad, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody has to go, well, where are the other casters? How come they're not speaking
Oh
up or they're
yeah.
not saying anything? Travis isn't
Thanks.
saying anything, and I know Travis actually dated the CEO back then. So, but, there was this whole thing of like, if you're not saying anything, you're complicit in this whole deal. And now off with their heads too, because you're not saying anything. And so that's the thing that kind of gets me upset, because I mean, I want to get your takes. How do you guys feel about that? Because I mean, if you do think that they should be saying something, then say that. I don't think they have a responsibility to. Look, it's not, they weren't in the company, they weren't responsible for the things. Like they might be processing things. It's not like they have to respond in like the next hour because Twitter posted something. Like I don't believe in that. But so that gets me upset, and so all the people that do that, I disagree with them strongly. But I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a nuanced take that you have to go through all the different facets, right? I think the reason why there is pushback is because when, let's say, for example, very understandably, right, what happened with G2 and Carlos, which was only a couple months ago, everyone was coming out the woodwork, right? Flowers was posting, like Travis was posting, everyone was posting and it had a take on something that they have no direct connection to, right? And I think it's very justifiable what happened to Carlos. Like, it's like, what the hell, man? Why? But these people all gave their takes then. So I think where people can get upset is, why is it when someone you're like friendly with or you have a connection with, you're just like, okay, she's total. And honestly, like, on one hand, one guy's partying with Andrew Tate, right? That's terrible. And the other hand, someone's abusing someone who has autism. Like, and like it was reported, I think in both reports, that Nicole literally one-on-one with Danny to convince him to play. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever had a one-on-one with their boss, especially the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. When you have a conversation about whether you should go do a presentation or go on stage to do something, do you think it's really an equal presentation? Do you think that's fair to Danny? So I think where it comes in is like, is it fair, right? Like, why is she not getting more flack? Something I also noticed, this is a sort of conspiracy theory, is G2's new CEO was a former Riot employee. And then EG's new CEO was either dating or was recently dating Travis Gafford with no esports experience beforehand, and she became the CEO of EG. Like, and obviously she was also working for the investment firm Peak Six that bought out EG. So I see that, but it's interesting how these people are getting CEO roles with very little high level experience, right? I mean, it's hard to have esports experience. I understand, but I'm starting to see the cracks, right? These people are getting put into places where they have connections with Riot. Riot kicks out the CEO or whatever before, and they're like, oh, we have someone for you. They have connections with us. So
Oh boy,
I don't know how this keeps happening, but it's a little
interesting.
sus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then did you have any thoughts like on, I don't know, if Azale comes out with something, does Captain Flowers need to, or Kobe come out with
No,
something, right? Okay.
I don't think so. I don't ever think you need to come out with something unless, and if you're in the industry, like anyone who has a livelihood understands, right? Your
Mhm.
job is way more important than like your livelihood is so much more important than all these other things. I think where I stand is I just wish that they were consistent, right? If you speak out on one thing, if something worse comes out, you should speak out too. If you don't speak out often, then I don't care. This is your privacy. I think, and if Captain Flowers thinks it's not his place to talk, that's fine. If Zale thinks it's not his place to talk, that's fine. Just don't come out all the time when it's an easy target and just like say you're so great, you know, say you're
So
holier than thou.
yeah, so what you're kind of saying is like it's complicated because everyone came out for the G2 Andrew Tate thing. That's a very easy topic to tackle, very easy to jump on board and say this is bad. This one, they didn't do it, and a lot of people didn't do it, and I think League Dad is bringing up like a lot of people on Twitter are frustrated that they didn't do it, and maybe that's why. But you know, it's not up to everybody and all these personalities to always constantly tackle every single topic. So that's like the nuance that I'm kind of gathering, right? Where it's like,
Yep.
should you or should you not do it? And then I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Alistair?
I mean, in my opinion, like I can understand getting annoyed, but I feel like people are looking at it way too simply. One is a very simple situation. You have a guy who's having a party with a human trafficker versus a situation that has multiple different layers and information that hadn't been released when people were sending out these tweets. So it's much harder for you don't want to say something that's wrong because then you do get crucified for that on Twitter. So I can agree with wanting consistency, but I don't think, in my opinion, that this kind of falls into that because it's a very different situation to the Andrew Tate one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we can all pretty much be on the same page. I'm in the same boat kind of where like if I'm, an LCS personality, it's also like someone that's I directly work with, right? EG is directly in the org. Danny's a player I directly interacted with. You want to make sure you get all your facts straight before you do anything. But once all the facts are out there and it's very obvious that something bad happened, I mean most of the casters and stuff they did say something,
Yeah.
right? They said something anyways. It took some time, but like I understand wanting to wait. I also understand like if you don't want to say anything at all because God, social media is super toxic and crazy.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then like it's really scary out there. And I think that at least for these personalities, right, they didn't cause any problems. They didn't do anything wrong themselves. And as long as they act in a way that withholds moral obligations and like high standards and stuff, like then yeah, you don't need to tweet about everything you goddamn do. Just act
Hmm.
like a good person, and it'll show. And as far as we know, like most people on the broadcast that we have are pretty good people for like on the broadcast and what they do and what they believe in and what they say. And yeah, right, Twitter guys, calm down. Let the people be.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think too, so the other wrinkle I want to throw in there and posit towards you guys is that Danny himself, whether it's a PR statement or whatever, but even in his tweets, had said that it was not him, or it was not EG, but that it was him that was, he said the accusations against EG aren't true. I'm reading his
Mm,
tweet. He said the truth is that the pressure of being an esports pro has overwhelmed me to my breaking point, and EG supported me all the way. Then he talks about him being a streamer, all that stuff. Obviously, looks very scripted. His Twitch wasn't even listed, and all this stuff. His Twitch looks empty, and so people are just like, look, it's not even, it doesn't even look genuine or real. However, what I want to posit is that, like, is there a possibility that he's actually, trying to own up for that and say that, no, I wasn't ready. And here's why I say that is because people are saying, okay, blink twice if you need, rescuing Danny, right? Like, cause that's what it looks like, right? Obviously.
hmm
But in my opinion, like he also has family. He also has friends. He also has people who are closer to him than anybody else, that have been with him through this journey. I really doubt he went through this thing in a vacuum where he was like, a cult where he was isolated from his maybe, but I have a hard time believing it just because it seems like he's close and has a good support system. So in my mind, if he's saying that and he's going through this with close family and friends, like I find it hard to believe that even his friends and family weren't even like, hey man, you need to take a break. Like, I know you. Like if like I have a daughter who's like high functioning, right? Like, if she was getting into a situation where I knew it was starting to get her stressed out, like I would be aware of that as her dad, as a close member of her family. And so it really is hard for me to think that he is in a vacuum and that nobody around him is saying like, Danny, you should be careful. And maybe he's saying like, no, I got it. Maybe he's getting pressure from work. So all of that long-winded thing to say is that people are putting all the blame on EG, which obviously if the evidence is true, it is rightfully so. But at the same time, Danny is also saying, look, it's me. I whether or not they pressured me, whatever, I thought I could handle it. I couldn't. Maybe even my friends and family said you should watch out, and he disregarded it because, part of it is, look, I want to be an LCS pro. Maybe this is you have an opportunity here to be, really famous, really good. He's already good. He's a rising star. And so maybe part of it is like, I want to push myself and stretch myself.
He also
that's
seemed
what
like,
yeah, go ahead.
He
Go ahead.
seemed like he didn't want to like let people down. Like I really
Yeah.
get that feeling.
Right,
Like, he
right.
didn't want to let his teammates in the yeah. So I kind of see where you're going.
So
with it,
that's what I'm saying is that,
Yeah.
For that mentality, maybe he's realizing like, I couldn't have done that. And so, yes, people should have maybe forced his hand and said like, no, Danny, especially the medical professionals, to be like, look, you're injured. You know what I mean? Like when somebody's injured in a sports team, they don't say, oh, it's kind of sprained, but you could play. Most of the time they're like, no, you're not cleared to play, until the doctor's orders. And so
the coach tried to bench his ass and
exactly.
he got fired.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is that I'm trying to at least, put it in a spin where, what I'm proud about, Danny, is even if it is a PR statement, if you accept responsibility for your own actions too, that's not a bad thing. Yeah. Like people stop trying to like discount him and say that no, EG's all the blame here. I think Danny is okay in saying that like, yes, maybe, but also I'm also a human being. Like I have autism. Yes, I can still make decisions for myself, and I'm capable of doing that. And I made the wrong decision and I can own up to that. So I'm trying to put it as a positive spin and just say that I don't think EG's 1000% to blame. I do think Danny had some blame to put in there and he accepted that. And I think that's an adult move. And moving forward, I think it's great what he's doing. But what are your thoughts? Am I speaking out my butt here? Do you guys hate me for saying this?
A little bit. I think
Okay.
you're in the right place, but there's literal evidence that his family didn't know. He came back and he was malnourished, and his family just didn't know that all these things were going wrong. Like it's in both articles. He comes back, he's literally underweight, not doing well health wise, and his family was not well informed. They were told that they would have sports psychs and like people to help take care of mental health, and they had like one person on the team or two people on the team that were handling that. Danny was going through a bad time. We also said, and I do agree with you on this point, last year we said when this all happened, like frankly, it is partially Danny's fault. Even if EG did mess up or whatever to handle it, it is partially his fault how he handles it. He has autonomy. When he says that I take responsibility, we should not ignore that, right? I will say the caveat being that it's not his own statement. It's probably a PR statement written by EG, but he probably has to accept it before he posts it, right? So he does take responsibility, and it can exist in the same universe. It's not mutually exclusive that he takes responsibility. It is a majority EG's fault for pushing him to this point, but he did have autonomy at certain points, right? Like EG did not ask him to break down from the pressure, right? He broke down from the pressure because, the environment wasn't good. Sports is not a healthy environment. No one's going to sports to get good mental health, especially the top level. He's a superstar, right? So unfortunately, a lot of people break from this. And it's, I think in Danny's case, he's just the most extreme version of breaking. Like a lot of pros have just fallen off, right? And just like went into the night quietly. This is the first time where someone's like has such a public and easily observable breakdown, right? So like, do we blame people for ruining X Smithy's career or ruining like all these other really good pro players, right? Careers? It's probably partially always has been Team Liquid, TSM, C9's fault. But there's also the fault of the player, right? They couldn't handle it. This case is just that because he, has his own circumstances, and because EG was so blatant about how they fucked the things up, it's easier to blame EG, right? But it is clearly partially Danny's fault. Just because you are high functioning or you have some level on the spectrum does not mean you're not a human, right? You have
exactly
the ability to make decisions. You can still have your autonomy. So I think a lot of the internet should not just ignore him. They shouldn't just assign every time he says something, no, he didn't say anything. We should advocate for him. And I was like, that's not exactly it, right? Yeah. Blame EG. Of course, blame Danny to some extent, but it's an understandable kind of blame, right? It's not he's blameless. It's just that he accepted that he made a mistake, that he could not handle it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And we should just accept that and accept that EG also should have fault. Probably more.
One person accepted their faults, the other fired the coach who was trying to help him. So
yeah.
So who's the adult there?
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I'll just put it that way. It's very, very simple in that if you put it that way. Obviously, there's more nuance to it, but
yeah, it's a really complicated topic. It's been pretty well said, I think, between you guys. I'll also just leave it at something pretty short. Is Danny just seems like he's just a good kid. I know he's 19, but he seems just like that good kid that wants to do his best, help the people out, and be there for his team. And then when the pressure got to him, he struggled to hold himself up. And you know what? I'm sure if he had better pieces to lean on around him, like his teammates, seemed like he didn't get along super well. In the article, they specifically didn't tell JoJo that Danny was suffering. Inspired definitely had issues with Danny's champion pool. I'm sure Vulcan isn't the happiest go luckiest dude to have as your lane duo, right? So Danny didn't have the best pieces to lean on, and the company around him is very daunting. It's very confusing for a young kid who has no idea what the hell's going on, right? He probably thought he could handle it, but he is a bit on the spectrum, and I really do think he got taken advantage of. Even if he was on the spectrum, he's just a 9-year-old kid. He definitely got taken advantage of. He definitely got manipulated into thinking, at least, that some of it is more responsible than what it actually is for him. But I mean, I gotta love the kid, right? He's getting all the worst cards dealt to him, and he's like, "No, it's my bad, guys." And I'm like, "All right, well, shit, this is such a bummer." So I don't know. I guess the one thing I want to take away from this is go Danny. I mean, I think we should listen to him more. And I hope oh god, he was complaining about Champs Q. He was saying you couldn't wait for MSI to be over. We should have seen the signs ages ago. And I feel bad because it's not like we literally did anything, but I feel bad the community is they were so quick to attack him for such little things early on. And then it just blew up for him so much harder than any of us realized. And EG just took advantage of it all the way. They just went, and I feel bad for the kid. So
they tried to sell him off when he was collapsed, so that and they didn't tell people that he had problems.
Yeah,
it's actually so sad.
It's sad. It's like you have this great talented kid in this very messed up League of Legends world, and the League of Legends world does not deserve Danny, but Danny is just so good at League of Legends. So it's what do you do? But God, our community does not deserve this kid. But what are you gonna do, right? There's no other community that plays League of Legends, so.
It's true. The fact that you brought up that the community was jumping on him for all of these things, Champs Q and, complaining, saying that MSI, he was glad that was over. You're right. But this is the same community that's speaking up for him now. But it's where were we back then? And kind of it's a gut check, really. Through these types of unfortunate things that happen, hopefully good things come out of it, right? Because hopefully, right? Riot's investigating, quote unquote, right? EG.
Yep.
But maybe this does create new changes in the player association where this becomes a thing, the community demands it. Maybe as a community, I have very high doubts about this, but maybe as a community, we relax a little bit when people are saying that this is stressful or whatever. And we don't just say, what, you're a professional gamer. I'd play games all day, and you're getting paid. And you know what I mean? Maybe we taper that off a little bit just to be look, it's a thing. It can happen. Right. So I don't know. Maybe I think you're right in the sense that through all of this, I hope Danny feels the support that he's getting from the community and saying like, look, we did you wrong. Like we support you, and future players that go through this, like they will be better off, hopefully because of your traumatic experience, right? Like, if anything, hopefully good things come out of this rotten, thing that happened. So, all the best for Danny. I hope that good things happen. But let's move on now to some LCS stuff because there were games. And boy, were the games interesting. So lots of stuff to talk about. Honestly, there were only 2-0 teams, which is EG and Cloud9. Almost everyone else went 1-1 except for 100 Thieves and, of course, our favorite Dignitas. But lots of new things. So there was roster changes. Bolulu came in, and I'm sorry, what was he in?
Wild
Immortals, right?
Turtle.
And Wild Turtle,
Tomo.
yep. Wild
Yes,
Turtle.
and we
Tomo.
have
And Tomo.
Tomo was last
Yep.
week, but he's still popping off this week.
Still popping
Very
off
notable.
this week.
Yeah.
So lots of stuff to talk about. I'll leave it up to you guys. Kevin, you take the wheel. Where do you want to start, my friend? Don't say Team Liquid. Don't say Team Liquid.
Well,
Team
where
Liquid.
I wanted to start was the Immortals versus Dignitas game.
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
That was
The best
pretty
game
much
of the
like
year.
one of the most hilarious and exciting games I've just like. I don't think it's good, a high level game, but it was hilarious.
It was
the whole
fun,
time was
yeah.
just so fun, and like I'm fine with that. Like I like that kind of gameplay. It might hurt my eyes at times, but it's just so funny. Just watching
Yes.
and laughing the whole time throughout the game. I've honestly never seen so many back and forth throws that embodied the North American spirit. Honestly, it was
beautiful.
truly beautiful.
It was beautiful.
If I had to like be really picky, I think Tomo played pretty well. Once again, he's not amazing, but he's not an interdog. Tactical did kind of win the game with a pick. Like once again, we understand why Tactical's put on teams, right? He finds angles. The problem is like he is only finding angles. He's only looking for angles. He doesn't remember all the other things you need to do, like be consistent, not int all the time. He's basically like the shy of AD carry, except AD carry does not allow you to be the
He
shy.
should just
right?
be a jungler, dude. I don't know. He always wants to go in, I swear. Like this kid, Tactical, stop. Play Malphite. Like actually, go play Malphite.
Like actually play Malphite. Yeah, so I think it was a really funny game. What I will say is Bolulu also had a pretty good showing there. I don't know where he's from. I know where he's from. He's Turkish, but I don't know why he hasn't been playing. But he played pretty well. Like maybe we'll touch on later, but I'm sad that Blaze Olive isn't starting right now. But Bolulu had a good game. Like he was very consistent in a very chaotic game on Zoe. He wasn't a superstar, but he was fine. And once again, Jensen Santorin, like I don't know what they're doing on this team. I think if they had a real team, they'd at least be like top 6, top 7, but they should not be on a 10th place team.
I don't know what to say about this game. We could do a whole episode on this one game. Honestly, we could talk about it for 2 hours probably. It's just so I don't know what to say. I mean, it was
Just kept throwing.
it was entertaining as all hell. Don't get me wrong. I was laughing the entire game. Nobody knew what was going on, including the teams.
No one knew.
But like, yes, my God, man. I mean, Baloo looked good. Baloo, I can say that he looked very good on the Zoe. But my God, man, I don't know what to say because there's so much to say. Like, there's throws all over. Everyone's dying randomly. I mean, Kevin, you put it a good way. Tactical's really good at finding those angles, but it's rare when he finds the angles. He only looks for the angles. It feels like he's trying to play Camille.
Yep. Yep.
Aside from that one Malphite cosplay, but it was I don't know, man. I'm so tired of Dignitas, bro. I'm so done. I'm just so done with this org.
Yeah.
Jensen Santorin, like they don't. I feel like they don't even look good in most of these games. Like sure their team isn't the best, but at the same time, like mid jungle is a very strong duo that can be pretty good at carrying games if they're on the same page. And we've seen them be on the same page before. I don't know what changed, but they just don't look like they're there. I mean, sure, they had the one upset over EG where they won. Jensen played out of his mind. Like, good for him there. But aside from that, they don't feel like it's the Jensen Santorin we know to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I was gonna say that. I mean, I think Arma is clearly like the big black hole for Dignitas. Like,
Hmm.
he even got his signature pick, Gnar, and he picked the worst one. I think he picked Galaxy, or not Galaxy, Dino Gnar or something. Galaxy's way better. I don't remember what it is. Wrong skin. Anyways, um, yeah, Santorin is actually, I think, kind of having a pretty bad time, unfortunately. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's all I have to say. I mean, I think we covered that. We don't have to go too much into this team.
Yeah.
Baloo, nice to see. Tomo, nice to see some rookie talent showing up. Narmut and Santorin. I don't know. Maybe get rid of Armit and tell Santorin that, hey, you're not on a bottom tier roster. You should try harder. And then maybe this Dignitas can do something next split. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah.
Yeah. The only
I
thing
don't
I would
think
say
Dignitas-
is
Oh,
the
go
only
ahead.
thing I would say is that like you know, they mentioned this on the dive, and like you know, Licorice was talking about it, Stixay was talking about it, and like with Santorin and Jensen, like they might be good players, but you know, when you're on a bad team, this is a caveat that they were talking about. Like, you know, it's hard to really gauge like, are they bad? Are they good when their team is just crappy? Because on good teams, even if you make a mistake, what they were saying is that your team is good and like you can win somewhere else, or like there's always still things you can come back from. But on a bad team, if you make a mistake, that's just game ending, or like there's just no way to come back from it. And so it's hard for, I think, anyone really to tell. You can look at numbers for sure, but it can't be just in a vacuum. Like it's with all their accolades, I find it hard to believe that they are just bad. I think it may have to do, you know, obviously with they've looked better with Tomo, so obviously you know, there is improvements they can make. I still think there's a hole in that top lane, like you said, Kevin, but you know, I have to still wonder and think that they are still good, maybe just on bad teams, but I don't know. Any rebuttals of that?
I mean, it's a very obvious example is Han Sama. He looked terrible on that Liquid roster when they
Yeah.
were collapsing, right? Now he's all pro #1 this year.
Yep.
And like
Mm.
he's on a good team too. So like of course.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of examples.
Okay.
There's-
Yeah. There's plenty of examples. I will say Santorin has made some plays, especially in the early game, where I'm like, doesn't matter if you're a good team or a bad team. That is just a bad play, dude. That is not. the
Sorry,
move. So,
Santorin. I try to throw you a bone, but Mitchell's
Yeah.
right. I'm sorry.
I definitely
Uh,
agree,
that
but
is-
if Vikla was on this team, we would just be calling him the next Summit, dude. He would just look like
Yeah.
an interdog too, because he makes mistakes all the time. But because his
Mhm.
team is so good, they just win in
Exactly.
the end.
No,
True,
I mean
true, true.
Vikla's boosted, so you know, Vikla is so
Good,
boosted.
yeah.
Honestly, I think they should genuinely sub out their entire team, coaching staff, and everything for their challengers team. Their challengers team is the second best one. They placed second in regular season.
Who did that one team? Didn't a team do that one time? They just
last year Immortals.
Mortals did that for like their last week or a couple weeks or something like that.
They
Yeah.
didn't
like-
win much more, but they looked a little better, I guess.
Mhm.
They looked interesting.
what do you got to lose, right?
I just
yeah.
don't see what you lose at this point. Like you have the second best team in challengers versus by far the worst team who has won one game. I don't see where the argument is for keeping them in. It's something needs to change, and maybe you get a lucky streak and somehow clinch playoffs.
Yeah.
100 Thieves is looking really weak. TL is shaky. Like, I mean, it would be
Top
it
six
would
though.
be it would be
It's top
very.
six.
Mhm.
Oh,
it's top
is it
six.
only top six?
Yeah.
Top
Yeah,
six.
so
They changed
100
it again
Thieves,
this week.
TL, and Dig, and Immortals
Okay.
are all probably not
My
making
bad,
it.
I forgot.
Liquid's not making it. They have the
Yeah.
hardest schedule of anyone else. Like,
Yeah.
in the top.
That's my bad. I
7.
forgot. I thought it was still top 8. But yeah,
Mhm.
so like I mean, even then, you now have more players who can have more stage time. I don't. Your current Dig roster is just not cutting it. Whether it's the coaching, whether it's the players, it doesn't matter. That's why I think just change them up completely, swap them over, except for Tomo. Keep Tomo in,
Oh yeah.
and
like Tomo.
Go from there. See what clicks.
But
Because
I don't think you
this is not
understand the
it.
law of Dignitas. They will never make a good roster change. Remember what
They-
happened with their Dardock roster when they were winning?
God.
They
Yikes.
subbed out the mid laner Saligo, I think it was, or someone, and then they subbed someone else in, and they just started losing it. It
Oh,
was like,
Yasui? Oh yeah,
they
I
put
remember
Yasui in
that.
for no
they
reason,
just-
dropped from like an exciting 4th, 5th place roster to a like 9th. It's like it was-
Straight. Yeah, no, they don't have it in them. They
can't.
Yeah.
They're not that guy.
Yep. Dig is not it.
They're
Dig's
not
not
it.
it, guys.
All right. Well, let's move on from then. I will say with the Immortals, we did have a special guest come on to give us their take on what Immortals might possibly do to change things
Transition.
around. So, Trey, you like that transition?
Yeah.
So here, check this out. Check this segment out with our friend Kimmer. This is actually our first time we've had a guest host with us. So, dude, welcome, my friend. I'm glad that you're here.
But I'm glad.
It's funny because he had messaged and said he had some hot takes about a couple of teams, one of them being Immortals. And so, we had to bring him on. And we're all about the hot takes, the spiciness. So, Kimmer, whenever you're ready, let us know what's your hot take about Immortals.
Okay, so Immortals, they're not doing the best this year. I think that it kind of had to do with a roster and having kind of a bad bot lane. I think personally, they get rid of Tactical in their bot lane. They insert 2 new ones. Let's just say if it was Double Lift and Busio, they're a top 3 team. I think they get rid of their bot lane. They're a top 3 team contender, in my personal opinion. Revenge is looking great. Blaze Olive was looking great until he took his little break.
Mm-hmm.
And their jungler can be he's good. He definitely has those moments where he's like, yeah, he's not. What are you doing there, bud? But I personally think that with the experience Revenge has and the plays and the stuff that he's been doing, a better bot lane, man, they could be a very dangerous team.
Yeah, we talked about that, right? Like, I mean, Revenge and Kenvi haven't really had a chance to shine because of their team sucking so much. So, I mean, I kind of like the take. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that, like, if you watched the dive recently where 6A and Licorice are on, they were talking about, like, just how easy it is to look good when you're on a good team. Like, Licorice especially was talking about this, right? And if it weren't for this LEC split, I would be a little hesitant on this take. But, like, I watched Vitality with their top side, Photon, Bow, and Perks, and then their bot side is just, like, a black hole of just nothingness. So, I can believe it. I won't necessarily say this Double F and Busio currently would be the game changer, but if you put a much better bot lane, this team could be top 3 because, frankly, out of the top 2, I'm not super convinced by anyone 3 and under in our league. So I don't think Double F and Busio currently would make that into top 3. They might be like 4th, 5th, but it would definitely be a big change because this team is just being inted on right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts with that, obviously. I mean, I do agree that your bot lane is the big problem, though. I mean, it is tactical, so like post spring split debut tactical is not just
no
not
secret
been
here.
since then. So it would be interesting to see. I also do have an issue with. I do think part of it is coaching staff. Just because, I mean, you can't, even with roster changes that they've had, they've still been bottom tier. But I think that would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I don't know. I still think they might be kind of booty, even with those changes, if I'm being real. But hey, Balulu's legit. I actually think Balulu is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. When they're playing this weekend, I was like, oh, okay. So, I mean, if they had another week with the new bot lane and they showed some good stuff, I might be convinced. But as of right now, they've been sucky for so long. I'm like, I could change a million things. I don't know if it'll happen. But I'm definitely down to try it because, yeah, tactical and the other guy, I forgot his name.
Flash.
They're not it.
Zay.
I don't even remember his name.
Is
Yeah.
that bad? Okay.
They're not it.
Well,
But,
yeah.
I'm down for some Immortals hype.
I think at this point, anything probably would help them rather than hurt them. Well, thanks for that take, Kimmer. Pretty awesome take. And I know you have another one, so we'll revisit that when we get to it. All right, welcome back. Again, that was pretty cool having that segment. He will be back on later, spoiler alert. But it's nice to try things. And Kimmer's been a long-time listener, and we've mentioned him several times on the podcast. So it's good to have him on and have his spicy takes. But let's move on. I want to talk about EG real quick. They were one of the teams to go 2-0, but even more impressive is they beat FlyQuest. And, one thing I saw, I looked at the interview with Ayla, and is it Ayla or Ayla? I still don't know. Ayla?
I don't know.
Whatever. I'm going to say Ayla. No. But he interviewed with Travis and said that they get crushed in scrims all the time. And for some reason on stage, they just, they step it up because I guess there's, more pressure and like they don't want to lose. So even if they're down, they play, to win. But I guess they grief a lot in scrims. And so
You're talking about FlyQuest, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Did
Impact
I say something else?
Notorious. No, I just didn't catch it.
Okay,
Impact is a notorious scrim enter, though, I've heard.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, but EG, you know, I was really shaky on them, and here they come out with a win against FlyQuest. So let me get your thoughts on them. You could talk about that matchup or anything else, but they seem to bounce back this week, and now they're again looking strong.
Ye- Uh, looking strong
He's
is
like,
one way to put it. Yeah. I think the someday Garen is what was exciting for me because
come on, now
I
that's
love
awesome.
Garen. I think he's such a dumb character, dude. He
He's
built
so
an
dumb, dude.
RFC on Garen, walked
Yeah, he
by
did.
into a fight, and just ulted and killed someone for like 1,000 true damage. That was so funny. I don't think RFC is optimal, by the way. I think it's funny. I don't know if it's
drive by.
good. But yeah, so what I liked was that someday I was willing to pick Garen and just hard counter Kazante. Like he just took Impact to town. Impact got solo kill. He couldn't silent. He couldn't team fight. It was hilarious. Jojo continues to die a lot, but he's playing better than week one, which isn't saying much. And then the last thing I wanted to say was I think FlyQuest is like they need more consistency. Like I think they're gonna be good in best of 5. I think Vikla does not care. I actually watched, like you mentioned the scrim thing, right? Which
Damn.
came to mind.
Yeah.
He looks like he's just like whatever. I'm just gonna int now. And then Prince looks like he's just like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like he looks like visibly when in their 2 losses, he just looks pissed. Like and like
He
more
hates
pissed than the
losing.
rest of
He hates
it,
making
right?
mistakes. He hates losing.
Yeah.
I mean, good
So
player for sure. Yeah.
I think that's a really bad thing for a team if this continues, right? Like when you're winning, it solves all problems. Like remember old G2 when they were winning, they were all friends, right? And then when they started to like fall off a little bit, the whole team just collapsed. I think this might be really risky for them, so they need to do well in best of 5. If they win their first best of 5 and do really well, like 3-1, 3-0, this team is going to go to MSI and like make some waves. If they go 3-2 like last year's like EG versus TSM, they might just boom.
I don't know what to say. I mean, sorry, I zoned out.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I wasn't
Garen
there.
just spun around, executed the
Yeah.
brain cells. I get it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to analyze Garen's perfection.
EG.
No, I just completely zoned out in what you're saying, to be honest.
All I was saying was that FlyQuest, that Vikla's an inter right now. He looks like he's bored. He doesn't care. While Prince, like, he looks upset that like people aren't trying, right? He looks like the most angry player on the team when they lost. When you look at the player cam,
he's having to carry them. That's why.
so yeah, I'm saying like if they keep losing, right? If they keep not caring, there might be internal strife. Like they might blow up, kind of like EG blew up.
Almost like I said this like 3 podcasts ago. Just saying, guys.
Did you? You didn't all in. You didn't all in
true, you didn't.
commit to it. So
Yeah, I
doesn't
did.
count.
We didn't have the all-ins back then. I was just like saying stuff a couple
That's
podcasts ago. Hey, you know,
Yeah,
class
I mean,
personality.
I
yeah,
can definitely feel that. I mean, you've been calling for a while that Vikla's not all he's hyped up to be, especially by certain League of Legends personalities. But I don't know. I mean, you're talking about scrims, right? Like scrims don't really matter. Scrims are for testing stuff out. Winning scrims just doesn't really matter. It's honestly better to lose scrims as long as your mental doesn't go, because you're gonna learn more from it. Like if you make mistakes, you get better. If you're smashing every team, it's like yeah, you're better, but you're not gonna learn as much really.
Yeah, I think it's the confidence thing though is thing. The mental thing does play a big part with a lot of players. So winning scrims helps. Like G2, they gave a statistic they won like 78% or 76% of their scrims, and then they just turbo stomped playoffs. Like that stuff helps with confidence. So I think when you're a new team and you have a guy like Vikla who hasn't really done anything in his career substantially and is not really trying that hard on the LCS stage from pretty early on into the split, and it's been pretty consistent for like the last 3-ish weeks, maybe 4. Um, I can see how it can be frustrating for someone like Prince, who gives it his all every single game. He plays his best. He tries really hard. If you ever watch his stream, he gets really upset about himself that when he makes a mistake, even in solo queue. And there's times where he like will turn off the stream because he needs to focus on the one game of solo queue and play it as best as he can. It's just 2 different breeds of players, right? And you know, I think both can be fine, still find success in the LCS and more, but they're gonna clash if things don't go well. So I mean, I am a little worried about this FlyQuest roster, just a tiny bit, especially because I think their draft was awful into EG, and it wasn't like an awful draft into EG. It was like a draft that just didn't really seem like it worked together well. Like they had like the Kasante and the Sejuani, I guess, for some auto attack stuff, but they're both tanks, right? Not a ton of damage, and they're blind picks, right? And then they have Talia, right? But you're roaming to a Kasante lane with a Sejuani jungle, or you're roaming to an Aphelios Lulu lane against Varus Thresh. There's not much for the Talia to do either. Not a lot of dashes to stop for Talia. And then Aphelios Lulu, I mean, I feel like Prince is just picking Aphelios because a lot of ADCs and bot lanes are getting nerfed, meta's changing, but it doesn't seem like a great Aphelios game, right? Gragas and honestly Varus and Azir all seem kind of terrible for Aphelios. Outrange him completely, right? Doesn't get a lot of time to auto attack. Like Aphelios is just really just doing burst combos. So I mean, they just it's a new meta, right? This whole weekend was a very different meta from what we've seen for the entire of LCS. And my main worry is that FlyQuest isn't going to figure it out, and they're going to be doing some weird drafts like this one in best of fives and playoffs, and they're just going to peter out. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully they don't mental boom, and hopefully they can figure out the drafts and meta because FlyQuest should still be one of our better teams. Somehow we were talking about EG, and then we were just only talking about FlyQuest.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did play each other, and that is, I mean, that goes with it. So you could talk about EG because, I mean, that was the whole point, is that FlyQuest is, this really supposedly good team. EG was kind of on the downtrend, and yet, they beat FlyQuest, and then they also okay, so I forget who they beat second. I think it was maybe TSM or something, but they went 2-0. So it's kind of, they're in top. This is top 4 we're talking about. So it's always like, who's going to overtake it at the end, because it's close between, FlyQuest, C9, who is it? EG and Golden Guardians. Yeah. So do you think that EG has a shot to overtake that spot? I mean, more realistically or closer is Cloud9. Like does FlyQuest hold on to that top spot?
So I'll just say a little bit about EG. I do think that they tried very hard this game, and I don't know how hard FlyQuest was trying.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, FlyQuest or EG gave a lot of thought in their draft, especially with the Garen counter pick, and it worked out for them, right? But I mean, FlyQuest, I don't know how hard they're trying. I don't know how many picks they're throwing out there. It's a new meta. They're kind of just seems like they're just playing stuff. But for EG, I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is just a team, if they try really hard, yeah, they could just be the best in the league. But are they all going to try hard at the same time? I don't know. Same thing with FlyQuest, right? If they all just try really hard, if Vikla just sits there and just tries really, really hard to play well, I think this team could be the best too. But
Right.
it doesn't seem like any of these teams can find a ton of consistency. But that's what regular season's for. But I mean, I'm excited to actually see EG, like JoJo, especially play
Mhm.
well. Like, oh my God, like all the metas were about playing around bot lane. This week, everything shifted. It was mid lane, mid lane, mid lane. Every jungle's going mid lane. Everybody's fighting constantly around mid pressure and stuff. It's exciting. I feel like it's a breath of fresh air in the meta. Also, I will say, Winsome is a better Lulu. Oh my God, Ayla dies on Lulu so easily. He's so free on Lulu. Winsome does not die very easily on Lulu. Actually, he never died on Lulu. But I mean, when Ayla seems better on Rakan and stuff, Thresh probably.
Maybe they
So
swap them in and out. I talked about this. I'm all for
Yeah.
swapping rosters. Like, you need engage supports. Yeah, put in Ayla or Isla. Put, you need a enchanter. Sit back. Don't die. Protect your
Yeah.
ADC. Put in Winsome.
Winsome. Yeah, I mean his Lulu and Lux, I feel like from Winsome
Yeah.
are probably better than Ayla's from what I've seen so far.
Right.
So
I mean,
Yeah.
it's cool you mentioned JoJo too. I mean, I looked at his stats this week. I mean, his CSD at 10 was 18. 18. His XP at 10, 657. He was killing all of those stats. Gold at 10,
It's
all of that is
disgusting. Yeah.
insane. So I definitely think he stepped it up. Maybe there's something has changed, and it's like, the impact thing, like turn it on for postseason or late season. I don't know. Kevin's like,
Yeah.
no.
Distract himself from the EG drama. He's like, I'm just gonna play the game.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna keep playing. But do you guys think Cloud9 can they had an easy week, and I say easy, knowing that they beat 100 Thieves, who I thought was good, supposed to be good this split. Had signs, but they just look out of sorts. But back to C9 is that can they overtake? I mean, Can they overtake FlyQuest as the first spot? Because they got Eminez now. What more thoughts about him? Like, what'd you think? Did you see anything there in their performance as far as like, being able to hold on to that 2 spot, maybe go into the first place spot? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think Eminence is still a work in progress. I see why he was put in the roster. Like the way they drafted Yone, and damn, he popped off. He did well,
Mm-hmm.
and they just keep playing a much faster or much more aggressive game with him in there. That's not always going to be good though. You can't always win with LeBlanc, right? So I think they could get first. I think they will get first in the regular season over FlyQuest because it looks like FlyQuest isn't pedal to the metal trying to win every game. C9 looks like they're trying their best to like make aggressive things work, and they'll probably pressure NA teams way harder, right, and win and probably look more dominant. But in the best of 5, I think FlyQuest would probably 3-1 C9. So in regular season, I think C9 will win. I mean, the Kings of Spring, it's Blabber. Like I expect them to do well. And this year, top 2 will make it to MSI. So currently, they're on a good trajectory. EG is the only one even remotely close to contesting that top 2. So I think C9 made the right choice. Diplex, if I had him draft Yone or LeBlanc, I think I would like gouge my eyes out.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I definitely think it's possible, looking at strength of schedule, to be honest, for EG and possibly Cloud9, because I mean they're 1 and 2 games behind respectively.
Mhm.
Cloud9 and FlyQuest have very similar schedules when it comes to like actual difficulty, and they do play each other. I believe it's this week. So
Nice. That's gonna be a good game.
that match will be very telling. I think if FlyQuest beats Cloud9, I don't think that they will. I would predict FlyQuest goes 5-0 and they keep their number 1 spot. But if maybe if they randomly drop a game to Golden Guardians again, or if they drop it to TL, I do think there is a world where EG actually wins regular season, because I think it would be pretty easy for them to go 5-0 because they have probably the easiest schedule of all the teams, because they play. So they would have to go. To be fair, they do have to go through Cloud9, but aside from that, they play what is it? So they play CLG, Immortals, 100 Thieves, TL.
Kevin wins.
For EG, that I would not call that an easy schedule. They are so gonna not try hard for like half of those.
I agree with Mitchell there. Like
that is fair.
Yeah, but if it's an
to them, that's
MSI,
just,
if it's
usual.
MSI, like ramifications, right? Like,
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying. I'm saying
I have no
it
faith.
is possible.
It is possible.
On
It is-
I'm not saying
paper.
it's likely.
I
saying
think
it's
it's
paper is
possible.
possible.
It's so funny. I would feel like FlyQuest with an easy roster, yeah, they're taking it to town, and it's only going to be the good teams that have a really good game plan against FlyQuest that beat them. EG, if they have good competition, they show up and they try really hard, and they're more likely to win. But for some reason, they play against bottom tier teams and they just lose, man. Like I don't understand what it is with EG. I mean, they're doing this last year too. But if we're looking at just direct strength, yeah, I think EG. I mean, they beat FlyQuest. I mean, if they beat C9 too, and I don't know, they could be at least power level wise, maybe the best team in the regular season. Who knows about standings? Let's be real. Doesn't really matter. I mean, there's playoff seeding and stuff that
Yeah.
kind of matters. But for strength of how good the team is, yeah, I think there's a real case for saying that if VG keeps it up, that they could seem like the best team going into playoffs for sure. And
Mhm.
then FlyQuest could definitely see themselves as a downturn. And then C9, back to the main topic of conversation. I mean, yeah, they're interesting. I am still Eminez does feel like he is it's like he's there to unlock Blabber rather than like actually be the main character of the show. Like
Mhm.
Blabber looks like he's on a tear right now, playing Lee Sin, playing Elise, playing very aggressive junglers, and just fighting a ton, invading, trying to make plays. I think that's what Eminez is really unlocked for C9. And then
Yeah.
now Fudge, he's playing tanks, right? He's playing Cho'Gath and Sion. He's not just blinding Fiora and Aatrox every game, right? So um, I think that's what Eminez does for them. I hope that Sven gets his stuff together because that it was some pretty weak stuff this weekend from Sven, just kind of dying for free for no reason for fun. So everybody's got stuff to work on. C9, EG, FlyQuest, and you know what? Our whole last episode was titled Golden Guardians, they got a lot of stuff to work on too. What's up with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's going to be our
some-
next. That's going to be our next team. But real quick, I just wanted to add that I think Blabber did say that he had that conversation with Eminez. Like, he was one of the gatekeepers who had to approve of Eminez. Before he came onto the team. He mentioned that. So I think that conversation went like this: Eminez, you better play for me. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
You need to unlock me and let me go into
Jungle
their jungle.
buffs,
Jungle
Patch
buffs.
13.5.
He's like,
my
I don't
time,
care,
baby.
He's like, you could be toxic to anyone else, but you better enable me, bro. He's like, that's what he said.
The
Yeah.
reverse Bjergsen, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to add on to what Mitchell was saying, like just for context, like the 4 games before MNS came on, he was Sejuani, Maokai. And the second MNS subs in, he was Wukong, Rengar, Elise, Lee Sin. Like guys,
Let's
it cannot
go.
be different, more different, right?
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
obvious what they're trying to go for with him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said Blabber's our main character. Blabber's the guy, and
Yeah.
then Berserker is the late game insurance card.
Insurance,
So
yeah.
I like what they're doing. I think M&S still needs to like clean some of his play up.
Mhm.
It's still a little like, ooh, one of those was like that's a little too much. Or you're kind of not there at the right time. But I mean that's to be expected, right? He just joined,
Right.
so
Yep.
yeah, it's
I mean,
exciting.
looking
We'll
at
see what they can do.
his laning stats are good. Like he's
yeah.
definitely much better than Diplex. I mean, I'm not saying he's the best laner out there, but he's up there. At least top 4, top 5. I remember. So if that's what they wanted him for, to enable Blabber to do those early things, get prio elsewhere or invade the enemy jungle, then that's exactly what he's doing. He's doing his job, and yeah, the things that I'll have to work on is like the mid to late game fights and making sure he's positioning properly and doing the right things. But it's a promising trajectory. But let's move on to Golden Guardians, because this is the team that could have possibly beat the win streak of FlyQuest this split, but ended up losing to Kevin's team, which was just mind-boggling to me. I just cannot believe they lost a team.
What a weird
Freaking
game.
Liquid. What a weird
Really
game. But
really
so,
weird game.
So
I
while
don't
we
know.
talk about Golden Guardians, it's okay to talk about Team Liquid as well, because they did lose to that team. So inevitably is going to come up in conversation. But yeah, Golden Guardians. Mitchell, you mentioned there's things they got to improve. But let's just unlock them. What do you guys see? Do they have potential to rise, even a top 3 or 2 or 1 even? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I still think they have potential. They got stomped by Liquid, but like it's just the game snowballed out of their control. It's like, okay, that's fine. I think what happened was they played away from what was working for them. They tried to. Honestly, I don't really know how they collapsed that hard against Liquid, but clearly they probably did not go into that game expecting that hard of a match. If I had to say, like they tried to do stuff to Summit and he was just like unkill. He didn't die. That's like unfathomable. Like your game plan when you're jungling against Liquid, your route should be, red buff, Krugs, top lane free kill. Then you keep rotating. So it's really hard if you
Scuttles
don't have that in your rotation.
Gate top again.
Yeah. Your goal calcs, your EXP calcs are all regarding, getting a free kill on top. So
Check
I
my
get that.
phone, gank Summit again. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
The reality is they're still 8-1 afterward. They didn't have a great win against Immortals. I thought that game was unnaturally close. But
Yeah.
like,
But
when you
Lulu's
have
insane.
momentum-
That's why. Sorry.
he went 5-1-5. Yeah, he played pretty
that guy
damn
was
well.
cracked. Yeah.
I think Gory River continued to be like, even if they had a stumble, like as long as they play with that in mind, Gory River and then maybe some Huki roams when the melee supports come into meta this patch, I feel like they have what it takes to be the best like combination. And so they need to just make sure that Licorice like is on something else. I hate the Jax pick. I think it doesn't make sense for him. I don't know why he's on Jax. He doesn't play it well enough. They have won a game with it, but I think this team's fine. They're 8-1, guys. They lost one game. It was to Liquid. Liquid just like managed to flip all their coins correctly once, and that's why they lost to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you put it pretty well. I think Golden Guardians was expecting an easier game. I mean,
Yeah.
Licorice also just kind of got smacked up by Summit pretty bad. I feel like it was pretty one-sided, as I think we kind of expected it to be, and Summit was not punished as hard as he probably could have been. because as most teams do to him, that's kind of why he's known for inting, is because he gets punished very easily for overextending and kind of disrespects the jungler, just always ego 1v2ing. But other than that, I mean, I think they just TL had a good game. Golden Guardians underestimated.
Yeah, I think Golden Guardians had a really bad draft. I mean, like we talk about yeah, Licorice picked Jax and then he got beat up in lane, right? Like why did that happen? He blind picked Jax and Gragas is up and is like one of Jax's hardest counters. So yeah, no kidding he got pooped on. Like I thought that was totally stupid to blind pick Jax like that, without protecting with any bans either. Um, so that was bad. And then also River, I mean, everyone figured out like 2 weeks ago, like yeah, take Vi away from him. River's a very different champion. He plays Sejuani. He still looks good. But if you put him on Wukong, he has no CC before level 6. And Wukong's a very nerfed champion, much worse in the current state of the jungle. I don't actually know why people are picking Wukong still. But, God, he had like very little impact until like into the mid game, honestly. He wasn't doing stuff in the mid game. Gory looked super uncomfortable in Annie. And this bot lane of Ashe Ezreal is like the most like useless shit ever. Like, Jesus Christ, that thing was completely worthless. They kind of pushed in lane a little bit early, but I'm like, who cares? Oh my god, it's Ashe Ezreal. So just a terrible draft. Um, and then, you got freaking Asol just freaking 360 no scoping people. Like, this jam is so stupid. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to talk more about Asol as we go on, because, like, honestly, kind of made a pretty huge impact on the LCS this weekend. But to comment a little about TL, like, even though Summit never died, right? Oh my god, like, Summit has every ability in his kit to control the wave perfectly. It's a Jax with only single target, can only auto attack, right? And you have Gragas, one of the best lane control top laners out there, and like Pyosik is coming up to hide in a bush and gank, and he fucks over his own wave, and Pyosik wastes his time. It was twice in a row. Pyosik came up top to gank the Jax, and Pyosik decides, or no, Summit decides, all right, I'm gonna trade. All right, I'm gonna shove the wave, and Jax ran away. Oops, I wasted my jungler's time. This is why Summit is terrible, by the way. Oh my god, he does not know to control his wave, to help his jungler out, to sync up, to get a gank in. Like, I realized it. It was like just this light bulb popped in my head. I'm like, he has no idea what the hell he's doing with his wave in response to his own jungler. Um, so that was very enlightening. But honestly, River couldn't punish it at all. But yeah, just little Summit information there. Um, yeah, but Golden
Yeah.
Guardians, I mean, they need to figure out the meta, right? The meta changed a lot. They don't know what they're doing. They're just picking random shit. As soon as they figure out the meta, though, I do still have faith in this team. Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, like it was interesting to hear Licorice on the Dive interview. And one of the things they talked about was, Renekton. That's a champion that he's been playing a ton of, and he's 5-0 with it, right? But one question that I think Azael asked him is like, when you're finding success with a champion, does that make you kind of short sighted into seeing what the next thing is? Because obviously, if Renekton is banned, he's won a couple of games, on other champions, but is it enough? Like, does he have enough depth on other champions to really make an impact on things? And that's a question that he's going to have to ask, because even when he was thinking about it, he says he doesn't like to look at like champions, and he, as a player, you have to have your own opinion. I agree with him on that, but he likes to look at it as more of like play styles, like, instead of what champion specifically, what kind of play style do I need to play? And I think maybe sometimes his pick consideration or what he's considering doesn't seem to make sense, whether that's a coaching call or his. We'll have to see, but I do think that that's going to be another area of question is, does he get a champion that he's proficient on and won't make too much of a hole up there where, the rest of the team can follow. I'm not saying it's all on him, by no means. Like, I do think you're right. Meta's changed. You mentioned not having Vi on River, the Annie pick, and all of that stuff. So all of that makes sense. I'm just saying that's another wrinkle to consider in the Golden Guardians of things they need to
I
improve.
fixed it already. We're heading into the meta. You got 3 champions, Licorice, Gragas, Scion, and Cho'Gath. That's all you need.
That's
Please,
it.
for the love of God. Just pick those, stop inting, farm,
That's all you're
be a
allowed.
team fight with your god-ass four other people. They're so good, the 4 other people.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
All right.
regret. Last podcast, I said you know, solo would be a side. I disagree now. I'm like,
Oh.
solo, please. Like, oh my
Okay.
god.
All
This
right, let him
right.
go.
weekend, dude, Licorice was like, he heard the podcast and he was like, let me show you some real,
Mm,
show you some real top lane experience.
there it is.
Okay, I will say
I
after watching the
apologize.
Licorice special on the dive, I felt more empathy for him or sympathy for him, and I was like, okay, you know, maybe he does like he has a point, right? He was spitting fire. However, then I watched this play again, and I was like, there's only so much you can say when you're just like legitimately don't know how to lane. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're on a bad team, but like when you're just unimpeded, you're just losing straight up. And you say you practice one, like, you know, he's infamous for practicing 1v1s. I'm like, if that's what you're focused on and you're not even good at that, like, what are you good at? Right.
Mhm.
So that's all. I'm not going to do a personal attack on him. I'm just saying, like, he needs to work on himself, right?
Yeah.
He needs to be better, and this team could be so much better. If
Also, at the end of the day, there's the perception of how you think you are and what is actually there objectively.
Yeah.
Like, if you're losing matchups, then even if you think you know the matchup, you obviously don't. So, again, that's not a knock on him, but, you know, just objectively speaking, you look at it, then maybe it's not where he thinks he is, you know, as far as his lane strength and that sort of thing. But
Yeah,
we talked about, you know, we were talking about Team Liquid again and things they need to do. And once again, we have our friend Kimmer with a special segment and his hot take on what Team Liquid can do to improve. So take a look at this. His other team that he wanted to give a hot take on is Team Liquid, Kevin's team. And so Kevin is bracing himself for whatever this take could be. So Kimmer, you have the floor again. What is your take on Team Liquid?
Man, get Harry out of there and put B-Whelp in, or put him in, man. I'm tired of this team.
Okay.
They need something else that needs that spark. I just don't think that we every week it's that they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. I just don't think that this team can do it. I think they're having the same thing with 100 Thieves, an identity issue. They're not really playing through a certain lane. They're not playing to their strengths. Summit's great. P06's great. Harry can be great. You know, Core JJ, I feel like he's starting to get overrated. I feel like that his career slowly dialing down. Bring in B-Whelp.
Wait, who is that? Is he on the academy mid laner?
Yes.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
Bring him in.
Yeah.
Kevin?
I've not seen him in the academy.
I think that it's just they were relying too much on the world championship Piosik to kind of carry the team. And he's also just not doing it. I think we need to get Piosik out of there too. I think that it was one of those things where, like, oh my God, Piosik won the Worlds. But like when you look at the Worlds performance, yes, he was a big part of it, but he also wasn't too, you know? I feel like that bot lane in their mid lane that carried them a lot to that World Championship last year. I don't think Piosik had that. Was like, oh my God, Piosik's in every single play, doing everything. I don't expect every player to, but as a world-class jungler, you know, you're usually in almost every play that's happening in the map for your team.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
get them both out of there.
Yeah, so here's the thing. A team that all speaks the same language, I mean, every NA team speaks English to each other for the most part. So, like,
True.
does that matter, guys? Like, the 10th place Korean team is like, what, is it Bro this year? I don't remember. But whichever team it is, like, it doesn't matter if you all speak the same language. If you're not on the same page, you're not getting anywhere, right? And clearly, right now, Liquid just doesn't have it. They probably have kept this roster in because they're doing well in scrims. Like, every team except for C9 has said that they just get, like, a really scary team in scrims. And I could see it. Team Liquid's early game is good. But, like, Harry, I would trust... Okay, I wouldn't trust tactical mid lane. I would trust most people in mid lane over Harry because, like, his early game is fine. It's actually quite good for NA as far as, like, a non-import goes. But his everything else is impossible. You can't play through mid. So when you just can't play through mid, like, most elite collapses, right? Last year when Beard was, like, good but not consistent when you needed him, that was already bad. And now you just have a worse version of that. How is that even possible, right? So I agree. Unfortunately, like, I will definitely vote in the fantasy league that we're doing in our podcast, in our Discord. I will always vote for Liquid, but I don't think they're gonna make it, guys. There's just
Oh no.
were you talking about APA as the sub, or who are you talking about?
Yeah. So I meant Bwipo, not Bwop. I was having a mental boom.
Oh, Bwipo.
Oh, Bwipo,
Bwipo.
Not
okay.
APA.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm down
Oh,
for Bwipo.
I'm
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
having a mental boom there, so
It's
I
okay.
apologize.
Totally
Yeah.
fine.
That's what happens when you think about Liquid this year.
Yeah, as soon as you were talking, I was like, wait, I meant Bwipo.
Yeah.
Bwipo.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And I don't
dude.
even care where it's at. It could be mid lane. It could be ADC support. Dude, he's better than every single person on that roster except for possibly Summit. You know what I mean? So it's like
mean, that's
anywhere
funny,
he
but
subs on there, he's
probably true.
he's gonna help the team out 100%. I think.
Yeah, no, now that we think about Bwipo, I think his jungle would be better than Pioshik, even if he doesn't know Korean. He could just be muted in comms, and I think he would do better because
Just
I
ping.
think Pioshik has
Yeah.
good games, but he's not reliable. And you need somebody to be a rock. You can't have Summit and Pioshik be coin flips. That just doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay.
You
What
know,
about
I think that if we get that experience in there, man, it's just he's better.
Yeah. You guys got thoughts, Mitchell, Alistair?
Not off the top of my head at the moment, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. I'm like this team is not doing great. So some changes could be interesting. I feel like they're gonna stick with it because they're like Korean roster, convincing ourselves that we have to stick this through the experiment till the end. But yeah, I mean, it's Team Liquid. Like I want to see some changes. I want to see them do well and stuff. And yeah, Harry's a bit of a problem. He's not consistent at all. He just like he sees the stars in his eyes and like he goes for this huge massive play and it completely fumbles and falls on itself and it causes them to lose the game like so many times. So I don't know what to say. Like he's got to try, but like if you try and you fail so often, I mean, you got the right attitude, but not the hands for it. So it's a bummer. I just think also like you're spot on with Pioshik too. I mean, I think a lot of people have sort of noticed that like he was very inconsistent his whole career. He just peaked really hard at Worlds, and the rest of like DRX had insane shot calling. So Pioshik got to shine on that, but this TL roster does not have insane shot calling at all. They just lose their heads like headless chickens in the mid game. But I mean, we're heading towards a more engage-oriented meta, so maybe Cordia J steps it up a bit, picks more Nautilus, and I don't know, Rel, Leona, they're all kind of coming back. Annie,
Yeah.
maybe, you know. So
Sure.
I think there's some time to see things through. But Whippo, I mean, I'm so down for that. I put a mid lane. I know his mid lane is cracked. I know his jungle is obviously good. Top lane, I mean, he doesn't lane as well as Summit, but like he doesn't die as well as much either. So
Yeah, you
um,
can argue that his team fight is better than Summit's, but
yeah,
laning phase,
yeah.
I say Summit's definitely best in the league for sure.
And Bippo's map play, right? That was also always good. So I mean, I'm down for Bippo.
Yeah, I think that's I mean, we were even just mentioning how he might be a pretty sweet fit into Golden Guardians to replace Licorice. I mean, I think just him not being in a roster right now, I do think he could upgrade a couple teams. Team Liquid, I never actually thought about, but I could see that. And
He's
you know, I
already
think
on
there's
Team Liquid, so
exactly right, easy fix right there. I think there's other problems with Team Liquid, like I think definitely mid lane is a problem. I also do think, and they mentioned this on the dive, and I also agree with the sentiment that I think they're trying to play too hard towards what the meta's doing and focusing on bot lane when you do have this amazing laner in Summit, and instead of trying to just like, I don't know, kind of force the meta down on the bot lane, I say go all in with Summit. Like give him a chance. Like let's put all our resources into carry top or something where he can just kind of dictate, you know, the pace. And even if he's gonna get ganked, let's just keep Piosik around there just to babysit him and see what happens. What do you got to lose? I think at this point, like experiment at least for a little bit. And if it doesn't work, then okay, then you try to readjust. But I just feel like having someone that good and not really letting him have the freedom to kind of play towards his strengths, I think that maybe limits yourself in what you might have.
yeah, Cordia J was like known for showing up at top lane at like 4 minutes in, like over and over again. He just stopped doing it. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do that again. Yeah.
All right. Well, Kimmer, do you have any last thoughts on Team Liquid?
Yeah, step up your game because I'm tired of choosing you guys in my picks, and you guys
For
are losing.
real? Yeah.
I stopped choosing him.
I stopped choosing.
Right? Like if you were doing live betting and you just watch the first like 10 minutes, you're like, oh, we're doing well.
We're good.
And then
Yeah.
collapse.
I mean, they freaking beat Golden Guardians this
Yeah,
weekend.
we'll
I was
talk
like,
about that for sure.
Yeah.
And
okay,
it's a big win, right? Most of the
Cool.
league can't beat Golden Guardians, and then we did, but
Yeah.
then we lose. Oh my
Yeah.
I was just like, whatever, dude. All right, beat Golden Guardians, lose to TSM. That makes sense. I have no idea.
Well, I think that's what's tough is the inconsistencies. So I mean that is a lot of hallmarks of a good team if you're consistent. So, but anyways, thanks Kimmer for your takes. Appreciate you coming on the show, giving us those awesome spicy takes for us to chew on. But yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for being on.
No problem. You guys
All
have a
right,
good day.
Thank
Later.
You too, man.
All right, welcome back. Again, that was fun. Thanks again, Kimmer, for joining us on the show. I'd like to do that again in the future. So, yeah, good stuff. All right, well, let's talk about one final team who is really pooping the bed, and that is 100 Thieves. And I know we like to joke on them a lot because their play just is the most egregious thing to watch. It makes you just want to roll over and bend over, really. That's what their gameplay looks like. It's like roll over, bend over, let the other team just hit you down, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sorry, I pardon my language, but that's how I feel every time I see them. But there is a bit of news. They fired their coach, and you know, I don't who's the coach coming in? That's right, yeah, Kaz. So they're trying to do something. So let me know your thoughts on that. Personally, me, I don't think it's a coaching thing. I think this team is veteran enough to where it's not the coaches making some of these decisions; it's the players, and those by players I mean. I'm really gonna say it's Bjergsen, and I'm just gonna say that. I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah, I mean maybe closer, but I think Bjergsen may be overpowering closer. I don't know. It just seems like that to me in the style. He did pick Lee Sin, which I wanted, like so I was happy about that, but it didn't work. And again, just with all the things with tenacity, like. You know, unlock that player. Let him play the things that he's used to, because apparently he's supposed to be a good carry champion type player, but they haven't really been letting him do that. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that. Your thoughts on the new coach, their style of play, and how egregious it is to watch.
Yeah, I think they needed a scapegoat. They have two superstars on this team, and they just had no choice. They can't bench double it, right? They absolutely cannot, apparently. And they know they're going to probably make playoffs because they have the Team Liquid tiebreaker. So, yeah, this is what they did. I mean, I actually disagree. They've been letting Tenacity play carries. He played Olaf, Fiora, Cassante, Jax. So, Cassante, not really. Gwen, Fiora, Jax. Like, he has a bunch of carries. He just isn't that good. And it might not just be because of him. I'm glad you brought up Bjergsen as a problem. It kind of looks like a TSM team, doesn't it, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Like when they were trying to play, they were trying to play to punish mistakes in the first game of the week. They picked all scaling, and then they just got rolled, and it was disgusting, guys. It was like a 23-minute stop. They picked Fiora, Sejuani, Asol, Zerilu. Like no lane was winning. No lane was doing anything, and they got rolled over. And finally, I just want to touch on, like, I'm so happy NA can do this. At least our top teams. We were for so long, 100 Thieves was making finals just playing the same way. Like if this was 2-3 years ago, this Bjergsen would have worked. And then I think the most hilarious part, because we didn't mention this, was they took the community sentiment. And then they picked all aggressive picks the next day. They picked Olaf, Lee Sin, Gragas, maybe not, and then Caitlyn Lux, and then got rolled again.
Yeah. Oh my lord.
So maybe it is a Bjergsen problem. Like every time he touches a jungler, they get worse. All of the junglers, not all, a lot of the junglers he played with were very good before they played with him, and they got significantly worse. Since Scarin comes to mind, Santorin sort of. Like there are a lot of. Even Santorin recently, actually, there was two Santorins. Jesus, Closer is a very obvious example. I feel like Closer and Blabbers, like trajectory went night and day depending on who they're playing with, right? So like, imagine Closer with M&S. I think they would also play really well together. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I think it's a Bjergsen problem. I don't think Bjergsen's like toxic. I think it's just you're forced to play around him, and things go awry if he doesn't play perfectly. He doesn't have the hands. He might have the thoughts, but he doesn't have the hands currently.
Well, I mean, I've been saying for a while. I think Bjergsen's the definition of a boomer. He wants to play the game. He wants things the way they were done in the good old days.
Yep.
That's exactly what he wants.
But he's right.
He can't adapt. Like, sure, like, yeah, him and Doublelift are boomers in the scene, but Doublelift does still adapt. He does still try and learn a different game and an adapting game. Bjergsen has been playing the same way since 2012. Like, or whenever he came in.
He was way more aggressive when he came in. He actually was solo killing.
That's an exaggeration. Fair. But like since like 2017, 2018, that's still
Yeah.
5,
Yeah, it's a
6
long
That's 5
time.
years. Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah,
You're
it's a
right.
long
Like
ass time.
it's been pretty obvious, at least to me. Like it's been a Bjergsen problem. Even after Parth was gone, even when he was coaching the team
Yeah.
still had the exact same problems. It's like it is a Bjergsen problem. I genuinely think if they had a different mid laner, if they had Jensen on 100 Thieves, I think they would actually like be contesting top spot.
Yeah, dude, put
Interesting.
Bolulu on there. I love Bolulu.
Ooh,
It's just
yeah.
such a fun name too. I love
He has
Bolulu.
such a good debut, man.
Dude,
Yeah.
he's just so aggressive. He's on such a terrible team, and he's just like, I'm getting in there, I'm fighting.
Hell yeah.
But yeah. Bjergsen sucks. Closer is like, I don't know. He's just like, I don't know, mental boomed. He's given up. He got Lee Sin. He didn't do anything, dude. Like Bjergsen got Gragas. It actually never made a single flash body slam play the entire game. That's the one thing you do, bro. So I don't know.
I would have rather they brought
Tenacity,
Scar back to play Gragas, bro.
dude. Like I don't. Jesus Christ. And then
Gar
freaking
rolling over in his grave.
dude, Doublelift and Buzio just got booty blasted by Luger and Poom so hard it wasn't even funny. And
Yeah,
honestly,
they
I gotta
did.
say, it was Buzio just flashing in for no reason. Like, what do you mean if you're flashing in? Doublelift just walking up to trap him in front of Calista. Like, what are you guys freaking doing? You guys not watching your screen? It was so painful to watch. Whatever. I'm done making fun of this garbage ass team. Like, Jesus Christ. CLG's dope though, honestly. They picked ASOL, they spun around, they did some stupid stuff. CLG, I don't know. They're just really fun to watch, so that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
I liked how they just completely shit stomped 100 Thieves. That was really fun to watch.
Well, I
Same
mean,
with C9 too. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
I will say, like, the one thing I'm worried about is like, will Bjergsen even listen to Nuke Duck? Like, these guys have about the same length of career, except Nuke Duck has almost always been less successful, right? He was on Lemon Dogs in the past. He's always been like in the middle of the pack afterward. Like, he was good back then, but he's never been on a good team or really been a superstar. So why would Bjergsen listen to this guy? He also hasn't been a coach for very long. I think Bjergsen might have coached about as long as Nuke Duck has coached,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
or longer.
Yeah.
So I think this is just like them basically officially saying we'll coach ourselves. We don't need a coach. And they're like,
Yeah.
we got rid of that guy. Nuke Duck is just there because he was the assistant coach, so it's the most obvious choice. And we're just ignoring him. We'll just play our own shit, which they've already been doing on stage, guys.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. They should have kept Reaper, dude. Reaper should have been like, no, you play how I tell you to play.
That's exactly
They
right.
themselves.
Reaper and Bjergsen would mix well. I think they're
No,
like the opposites.
Because then
Yeah.
Reaper would have made the right choice. You play how I play on the bench, bitch.
Yeah,
that would be
exactly.
great.
That's what you need. Honestly, Bjergsen, he might need to be that. He needs that kind of
Someone benches
leader
that.
who can do
Like-
Episode title.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, he's got that old mentality. It's unfortunate to watch, but it is what it is. And until Bjergsen can kind of realize, that he needs to change or needs to listen to somebody else or adjust his play, then I still think they're going to be in a bit of trouble. But one last thing I wanted to talk about was, Mitchell, you had made a comment, an all-in comment last time about Asol being played this week, and he definitely had big presence there. So let me just get your thoughts real quick. Mitchell, let me start with you since you made the comment. What about Asol? What did you like it? Was it everything you expected, hoped it would be?
It actually went exactly as I thought it would be. Honestly, CLG FlyQuest just started off. CLG tries to fight early before Asol has enough stacks. Oh, they lose. Oh, they lose that real bad. And then later into the game, FlyQuest is literally 15-1 in kills, like 10k gold up, and freaking they're winning fights with Asol because it's so broken. Because he had like 250, 300, whatever the breakpoint is. So yeah, Asol is just like, I don't know, late game god, absolute insanity. It's definitely better than Kassadin, I think. Like Kassadin doesn't turn those kind of fights because Asol does it from like so far away. His ulti just hits everybody. So this champion is really broken. I mean that's nothing new. I think the gameplay, right? Even if you tune his numbers a bit or change a couple of mechanics on his other abilities, the strafing Q thing, I don't think that's balanced actually. Like I don't think that's a balanced game mechanics to have in the game, especially because you can build tanky on him. And so if you build tanky on him and he has the stacks and the damage and the execute burn whatever thing that's going on, like you can't just contest him. He just kills you. And if you nerf the numbers too much, right, then he's just useless. Then Asol can't contest anybody. and
Yep.
he just gets killed by whoever's trying to fight. It feels like it doesn't. It's not supposed to be in League of Legends. That's my take on it. I think maybe a lot of other people have had the same take, but yeah, I mean it's funny to watch, funny champion to watch. He's just barfing on you.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my thoughts on him. He's gonna be broken.
I agree with you. I don't think he should be in league. Like Harry looked good in his 2 games on Acel to some extent, right? And I was
Dang.
like, oh no. I think he's
Yeah.
very suited for NA. Like he's a late game win button. That 5-man, like he was just getting Harry was getting like 5-man knockups with his Acel, the super Acel. I was like, what is
Yeah.
this shit? It's so wide, guys, and it's not committal
Mhm.
either. I was like, this can't be fair. And they still managed to lose the first 2 games of the day with Acel. They looked like they had no idea how to play it. Bjergsen
Yep.
especially looked kind of lost on it. He got dumpstered.
Oh,
So
yeah, that was not
I
pretty.
think that Acel should take more damage when he's using his Q. Like he should take more damage because he's
Mhm.
so vulnerable to skill shots already. It should be punishable. But I think they messed up. I think it's very cool, very fun for the spectator. But as a player, whenever I play against an Acel in ARAM, I was like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Like this
Yeah.
is unbalanced.
Oh,
And it
ARAM
can't
is
be
just
balanced.
miserable.
It's either
Yeah.
useless or OP. Also the star thing, the E, disgusting. It's such a powerful ability at late game. So
Yeah, I don't
I
like it
like
either.
it for visuals, but like I'm gonna just call it bullshit every time I see it.
I do want to give Bjergsen some slack. Yone is like the most one-sided matchup for Aurelion. He loses that matchup so bad. It's not fair.
Mhm.
As for his ultimate, yeah, it's BS, but I mean, even with like 800 stacks, it's still smaller than Shyvana's E, so
Oh, another dragon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's cool.
Yeah,
He's fun, but he's way too strong. I like what they did. He's way too strong.
yeah, he's way too strong. I mean, we'll see if they can balance the mechanic of like flying by you and barfing on you and just killing you. And, like I don't know, it just seems really ridiculous. Like he doesn't take like when he gets to a certain level ahead, you just can't kill him and he kills you super fast. Even if you're
Yeah.
like a Fed ADC or you're like an assassin, you jump on him, like you just die before he kills you. Like
it
it's
resets
crazy.
too, so
It
you can pick off
resets.
someone and then just like veer off in like 2 seconds.
I
And
mean,
then,
it's
like-
also just the insane HP you get from mage items right now.
Yeah, Rod of Ages and stuff is
Just
really pushing it.
Right, like,
Randomly have
yeah.
3,500 HP, more HP
Yeah,
than bruisers.
That's also the thing. He doesn't build the good AP items. He builds like the janky ass AP items that like don't do a ton of damage, right? But like he does so much damage with them. Like if you build Seraph's Rylai's Roa and you don't
You
have
shouldn't
mana
do
scaling,
damage.
you should not be dealing damage, but he nukes people so hard. Like if you put that on LeBlanc or like Zoe or like other AP mages, Oriana, they do no damage.
Someone
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Like
Well, Zoe
so
probably still one-shots you because it's Zoe, but like,
It's Zoe. That's true.
but
That's
like
true.
she doesn't have the same AP. It's no Ludens. Like you need like I feel like we're in a world where you should build if you want to be bursting people like the way that Asol is. Like you should have to build Magic Pen,
Yeah.
right?
if you want
And
to,
lots
if you want
of
to do
AP.
damage, you should build damage. It's as
Yeah,
easy as that.
yeah.
You shouldn't be able to just build resistance or HP items and still one-shot people. That was the
Yeah.
problem with bruisers for so long.
Yeah.
That's a good
So
point.
that's the thing with ACell. Gotta adjust. Gotta change it up a bit. But besides that, I am loving the new meta we're in. Right? No more Maokai. He's long gone. We got Lee Sin back in the game. Elise is obviously still around, but Gragas in the jungle. That is so much more fun than Sejuani, Vi, Maokai every game. Unfortunately, Vi is still just like it's just the dumbest champion. Easy press R win button. Like I mean Vi's broken as hell, I guess, but other junglers are fun. Tank tops, Sion Cho'Gath, those are interesting. Yeah, and the mid meta is spicing it up, and the bot meta is going to continue, I think, to evolve and adapt. Thresh is very much in the meta now. So kind of a cool world we're living in, and it's gonna get even crazier. 13.5. Oh my god, the
true.
meta's gonna keep changing. Playoffs is gonna be a completely different game from what we started Spring Split in. So that's LCS. Yeah.
Lots of good stuff. Okay. Do you guys got any final thoughts to wrap things up?
I kind of just did it without you telling me. So
Sounds good. Sounds
Look at the
good.
patch rundown episode. coming soon.
yeah,
Oh,
patch
okay, yeah,
rundown.
we'll do another patch
Definitely
rundown. We
should.
should. This is a fat one.
Yeah.
We got jungle buffs. We
Oh,
got straight
snap.
buffs for Inspired, Spica, and Blabber. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, be sure to check that out coming soon. But thanks again to my co-hosts for always sharing their wise insights. Thanks again to Kimmer for jumping on and giving his spicy takes. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Peace.